It is 2:13 in the morning. A 29-year-old office worker is lying in bed with one eye on a crypto chart and one eye on the rent due in 4 days. He is not studying a business. He is not analyzing cash flow. He is staring at a green candle on a token he barely understood 2 weeks ago, praying that Asia wakes up bullish. His group chat is still active. Someone just posted a screenshot, up 12 grand in one night. Another says this cycle is just getting started. The man in bed has $8,000 left in savings. Half of that is supposed to be untouchable. By sunrise, he has convinced himself that untouchable was just a word invented by people who got in early. That scene is not rare because young adults suddenly became stupid. It is common because the old scripts stopped feeling credible. When people between 20 and 40 go all in on risky assets, most outsiders call it greed. That is too shallow. Greed is only the surface emotion. Underneath it is timing panic, class anxiety, and humiliation. The fear is not simply, I want to get rich. The fear is, I am running the approved playbook and it still does not seem to buy me a normal adult life. Once that fear takes hold, speculation stops looking like a side hobby. It starts looking like an emergency exit. Run one simple scenario. A couple earns $80,000 and $95,000 a year. On paper, that sounds responsible, educated, middle class. After taxes, healthcare, commuting, and retirement deductions, maybe they clear around $10,000 a month. Now look at the house they are told is normal. A decent suburban home in a good school district is $650,000. Put 10% down, finance the rest at roughly 7%. Principal and interest push toward $3,900 a month. Add taxes, insurance, maintenance, and suddenly the all-in cost is closer to $4,800 or $5,000. Half the take-home pay is gone before groceries. That is not a ladder, that is a toll booth. And while that is happening, they are told to be patient and invest conservatively. Fine, let us do the arithmetic without the motivational wallpaper. Suppose you save $500 a month and earn 8% a year. That is disciplined, that is prudent, that is exactly what adults are told to do. But if your rent rises by $300, insurance rises by $150, and childcare rises by $400, your elegant little compounding model is getting strangled in the parking lot before it ever reaches old age. Slow wealth works best when the baseline cost of being alive is not sprinting away from you. For millions of younger adults, that baseline is sprinting. This is the first reason risky assets become seductive, not because they are sensible, because they are fast. If you have $7,000, a good year in an index fund is nice. It is not transformative. It might make you a few $100s. That does not alter your zip code. It does not create a down payment. It does not erase student debt, but a coin that jumps 5 times in 3 months, or an options trade that doubles in a week, seems to speak the only language your problem understands. Size, compression, escape velocity. Speculation becomes attractive when ordinary compounding looks too small relative to the scale of your delay. But crypto is not just speed, it is theater, it is status, it is the first asset class built to be displayed as aggressively as it is traded. Nobody posts screenshots of a disciplined year of maxing a retirement account. Nobody goes viral because they kept 6 months of expenses in a money market fund. But a meme coin gain, a 14 times altcoin trade, a leveraged long that printed in one weekend, that gets posted, that gets admired, that gets remembered. Which means risky assets are not merely financial vehicles, they are social signaling devices. They let people say, I am not the one getting left behind. That message matters enormously in a status economy. Watch how this plays out in real life. 3 friends leave college. One gets a normal job and quietly builds savings. One lives with parents and grinds overtime. The third buys crypto aggressively during a bull run and starts posting screenshots. The first 2 may actually be behaving more rationally. It does not matter. In the social hierarchy of the group chat, the third person now looks smartest. He looks early. He looks plugged in. He looks like he understands where the future is going. Rationality loses to visibility. That is one of the most expensive psychological traps in modern finance. People do not just want returns. They want visible proof that they are not ordinary. That is why this is also a class story. Risky assets have become a covert status game for the professional middle class. The old class markers used to be obvious. House, car, neighborhood, title. Those are slower now, more expensive and harder to secure. So the new marker becomes, did you catch the move? Did you buy Bitcoin before the breakout? Did you hit Nvidia before the split? Did you rotate into the right AI narrative before everyone else? Financial speculation becomes a substitute for delayed class mobility. Instead of owning status, people rent it from volatility. And rented status is very expensive because the meter never stops running. This is where leverage enters, and leverage is where the hobby becomes self-harm. If an unlevered move is not big enough to impress your own timeline, you borrow intensity, 5 times leverage, 10 times leverage, weekly options, perpetual futures. The logic is always the same. I do not have enough capital, so I need more force. But force cuts both ways. Put $10,000 into a 5 times leverage position, and a 20% move against you is enough to effectively erase you. Not bruise you, erase you. The market does not need to be wrong long-term to destroy you. It only needs to be violent before you are solvent. Go back to our 29-year-old at 2:13 a.m. Say he turns $4,000 of extra cash into a leveraged position because he wants to force a breakthrough. The token drops 18% overnight on some macro headline, exchange rumor, or whale dump. His position gets clipped. He wakes up with a hole, not a lesson. He still owes rent. He still has to show up at work. He still has to smile through meetings while his stomach feels hollow. This is the part nobody glamorizes. Losses in risky assets do not happen in a vacuum. They happen next to deadlines, relationships, performance reviews, and fragile self-respect. And there is a hidden trade-off almost nobody calculates. Every speculative drawdown is not just money lost, it is time lost. If you spent 3 years assembling a $15,000 house down payment fund and then cut it in half chasing a cycle, you did not merely lose $7,500. You lost maybe 18 months of future optionality. You lost the chance to move, the chance to negotiate from strength, the chance to stop renewing a lease in a bad neighborhood. In other words, risky assets often destroy the exact mobility they were supposed to purchase. There is also an attention tax. This does not show up on statements, but it is real. Speculation consumes bandwidth. It colonizes idle thought. It pulls focus at work, during meals, during dates, during weekends, during the last 10 minutes before sleep. A diversified retirement account does not do that. A 20 times coin with a rumor-driven chart absolutely does. Which means even when the trade does not blow up, it may still be making you poorer by degrading work performance, sleep quality, and judgment. Plenty of people are trying to use risky assets to escape a mediocre life while slowly making their actual life worse hour by hour. Meanwhile, the winners remain loud and the losers go silent. This matters more than most people realize. The person who turns 3,000 into 40,000 becomes content. The person who turns 12,000 into 1,800 becomes invisible. He does not post a thread called "How I Destroyed My Emergency Fund While Trying to Look Early." He just disappears for 3 months, then comes back talking about discipline and long-term thinking as if nothing happened. Entire speculative cultures are built on this selective visibility. The public sees outcomes. It does not see the graveyard. And because they do not see the graveyard, they misunderstand the odds. They confuse survivorship with normality. They start to believe there are only two categories of people, the bold and the left behind. That is a false binary, but it is an extremely profitable false binary for exchanges, influencers, and every platform that monetizes transaction volume. The more you feel that caution equals extinction, the easier you are to feed into volatility. This is why so much of the rhetoric around risky assets sounds like moral pressure. If you do not buy now, you do not get the future. That is not analysis. That is sales. Now look at what happens when the cycle turns. Liquidity dries up. The loud accounts become philosophical. The meme coins that were building community fall 70%. The altcoin ecosystem that felt like a second internet suddenly looks like a digital strip mall with the lights off. Everyone who said they were early starts saying they are long-term believers. This is where the cold bill arrives. Rent did not fall 70%. Student loan payments did not fall 70%. Groceries did not fall 70%. Your liabilities remained denominated in reality, while your assets were denominated in narrative. That mismatch ruins people. By 35, the damage becomes visible. This is the age when bad speculation stops looking youthful and starts looking expensive. You meet people with decent incomes, no house, no durable portfolio, no serious cash cushion, but years of market stories. They can tell you exactly where they were during the last Bitcoin breakout. They can explain 3 different token narratives. They can describe the week they almost made it. But they cannot make a credible down payment, and they have no stable asset base. That is the dark comedy of the era. Plenty of people are becoming highly educated in the language of wealth while remaining structurally poor. Here is the part that should really sting. Many people think they are rebelling against the old financial order by going all in on risky assets. They are not. In many cases, they are supplying fresh liquidity to it. They become exit liquidity for insiders, fees for exchanges, engagement for platforms, and case studies for influencers. They think they are escaping the game, but they are often just entering the game at the table reserved for people who arrive late and overconfident. That is not revolution. That is monetized desperation. And the cruelest part is that the original emotional diagnosis was often correct. Housing really is expensive. Salaries really do feel weak relative to asset inflation. The old middle class path really has become less reliable. But a correct diagnosis does not protect you from a stupid instrument. If the bridge is damaged, you do not fix the problem by driving faster toward the broken section. Yet that is exactly what many younger investors are doing with risky assets. They are trying to solve structural delay with financial violence. Sometimes it works just enough to keep the myth alive. Most of the time, it merely deepens the delay. So what is the cold rule? Never fund fantasy with survival capital. That is it, not a motivational slogan, a survival rule. If losing that money changes your housing, your debt position, your sleep, your job performance, or your ability to leave a bad situation, then it was never speculation capital. It was rent money wearing a costume. It was future mobility wearing a costume. People ruin years because they refuse to label money honestly. The people who actually stay rich understand something unfashionable. They do not build a base with moonshots. They build a base with boredom, liquidity, patience, and dull ownership. Then, if they want excitement, they buy it in a size that cannot amputate the future. That distinction matters. The amateur uses volatility to try to create a life. The professional already has a life and allocates a small sleeve to volatility because it will not matter if it dies. Same market, different balance sheet, completely different outcome. So yes, 20 to 40-year-olds are all in on risky assets. But the real story is not that they love risk. It is that they no longer trust slowness. They no longer trust that obedience to the old timeline will be rewarded. They see prices moving faster than paychecks, and they do the most human thing possible. They chase compression, they chase spectacle, they chase the one trade that seems capable of restoring status, speed, and hope in a single move. The tragedy is that the same trade often ends by taking all three away. Because that is what all in really means in this decade. It does not mean courage. It often means your margin for error has collapsed so badly that volatility starts to feel like strategy. And when volatility starts to feel like strategy, crash is no longer an accident. It is simply the bill arriving for confusion, delay, and borrowed hope.